How you doing, mate? It's been a little while since we last caught up. In that time, I've started a new role. What have you been up to?
Well, that sounds exciting. No, it's been good on my side, and it's great to be back. But tell me a bit more about your new role.
Oh, well, the role's in AI, working for a marketing agency. So it's looking at how we can apply AI in the marketing field. And obviously, there's a mass amount of tools that have been released recently, specifically for marketeers. So really, it's about understanding what the tools are, a lot around kind of the data and governance side of it as well, safe usage of data, and then trying to experiment as much as possible. Honestly, I've signed up for about 200 tools. I've been on calls with every state in the US, it feels like, and just really experimenting and seeing kind of what works, what sticks. There's a lot of tools that do a lot of the same things. So, a little bit like we talked about before, what tools are aggregating lots of different things together and hopefully creating something that's unique, but also really user friendly and hopefully can be valuable as well.
That sounds super exciting. I mean, it sounds like you're at the forefront of what's happening in the marketing space. And to be honest, I'm quite excited to kind of discover with you and hear from you what your experience has been with some of these tools. So, like, have you had a chance to kind of really dive deep? I know you've said you've signed up for all of these. Do you have some
Mm.
thoughts yet on like where you're headed with this or anything exciting that you saw?
I mean, there's been two areas that have been quite interesting. So, on the studio side, it's really about kind of generating. So, we've seen so many generative tools being released, everything from copywriting to video design and image creation. So, those tools are just getting better and better. And realistically, it's about working out what apps are best for your workflow, which are allowing you to enhance the work that you're already doing. And then trying to kind of refine those processes. On the research side, there's so much that you can kind of get stuck into. So AI search is obviously an incredible tool. And once you start putting that into a process, you can really start to generate some really interesting pieces of information. So that's been really cool. One thing that recently was announced from Adobe at their latest conference was something called Generative Studio, which kind of fills me with as much fear as it does excitement. It basically looks to be kind of an end-to-end marketing personalization tool. So you can build landing pages, emails, social, all in this platform where you have generative content, generative imagery, probably generative video at some point. And it's going to allow you to create personalized content for each campaign. Really interesting. Whether it actually kind of turns out to be as good as Adobe say it's going to be, at the moment it's only in beta. I guess we'll just have to find out.
That sounds super cool. I mean, it's essentially like having your own kind of marketing team at your disposal, doing different elements or putting together different elements of the marketing campaign.
Yeah.
I am actually curious of like when we'll see AI agents kind of making some decisions. I don't know if that is part of what Adobe are offering, but also
Mm.
we're also kind of having a marketer that's making those decisions for you based on a prompt or based on sort of your requirements, right?
I mean, from what I've seen so far, it really is about AI speed, but human attention. Without that
Mm.
human attention, the AI kind of just it either goes off and hallucinates or it just makes decisions that don't really fit. And at the end of the day, I think we've talked about it before. It's about the value of the content that you're creating. Where so Drake can release a song and everyone will sign in, they'll listen to it and stream it a million times. An AI could produce an almost identical sounding song with probably the same tempo, the same beat, the same feel to it. But because it's not produced by that human, do we show it the same attention? And I think that's really what we're probably going to see with marketing. Just because it can be done, it doesn't mean that it's going to be great. I think if we just allow AI to kind of create the average, um, people will very quickly tune into that,
Mhm.
just like they've done with advertising previously. People can recognize when they're being advertised to. People are already recognizing when AI is being used to communicate with them. So we're going to see that more and more. I think it's about smart use of AI to improve workflows, not necessarily replace what we're already doing.
Yeah, the bit about human attention actually, it's interesting because Pika Labs who have that text to video platform and 11
Mm.
Labs who have the sort of AI voice generation platform. They've partnered for this filmmaking competition. I think it's called like AI Film Fast competition.
Yeah, this looks
And I
interesting.
think yeah, and it's to me, it's kind of shows that it's the reason this competition exists is because you have a human who's kind of using these tools to create these experimental films. So even though there's a lot of sort of controversy about these tools, replacing human artists, and I know it's an area that needs a lot of care and attention. It still shows that these tools require a human sort of to be directing and making those decisions of how they want the film to come out. The fact that the competition is for humans to participate in, not AI to
Yeah.
participate in, right?
Well, I think we saw that with Sora, right? So the actual content is incredible, and the quality of what is it going to be openly accessible for production, I think, is really interesting. But let's be honest, the difference between a good movie and a great movie is really that direction. It's the human input. I mean, I'm obsessed with Dune 2. I've seen it at the cinema multiple times, and I don't mind admitting that. I would have gone to see it on my own, but luckily I did get accompanied on each visit. But that movie brings in so many creative inputs. You've got Hans Zimmer with the most incredible score of all time. You've got fantastic directing. You've got brilliant actors. And what they're doing is they're all bringing their own influence into that piece. I think that's what makes it truly unique. We're seeing so many modern films, blockbusters, that are kind of rinse and repeats. They're old stories that are just being refreshed and renewed with very little passion behind them. So when you really put that human attention in, you add your own spin. There's a difference between a Michael Bay movie compared to a Wes Anderson movie. Those are stylistic choices. I think that's what we're going to see with AI as well, is how people inject their own ideas into those tools.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, also, yeah, Dune 2 was pretty amazing. As soon as you said that, I was like, Lisan Al Gaib. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it is. I think that is pretty awesome, and I'm looking forward to kind of how a lot of the mainstream studios and directors sort of approach these tools and how they'd be used to kind of, I guess, improve creativity rather than kind of diminish, right, human creativity.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about AI tools in art, I don't know if you saw Spotify is releasing this new kind of feature, which is sort of like prompt-driven, personalized AI playlists.
Okay.
And
Need this in
to
my
me, it's
life
sort of,
already.
yeah, it sort of, to me, it seems like it's almost a way for Spotify. It's a response from Spotify to some of these AI music generation tools like Suno,
Yeah.
where you're creating a song from ground up based on your prompt. Whereas what
Hmm.
Spotify are offering is sort of like, look, you can put in a prompt about how you want to feel or what you're feeling or what the mood is, or where
Yeah.
you are, and then it'll almost curate human generated music that kind of aligns with it. And I
Yes.
think I don't have access to that feature yet, but I'd imagine, when you look at Suno, when you create something, to me, there's a novelty aspect to it. There's a song
Hmm.
that's a particular theme. It's about a particular topic. It could be funny, it could be serious, but you
Yeah.
listen to it a couple of times and you're kind of over it because it is a
Mm.
novelty song.
Yeah.
Not saying that it'll always be like that, but currently at least. Whereas I think with the Spotify feature, that to me seems like it's interesting in the sense that you're still listening to kind of music created by humans, but it's just
Hmm.
curated based on your prompt. But anyways, what's
Yeah.
your thoughts?
Well, it kind of reminds me. So I was reading just the other day about this economic principle that I think applies really well to AI. So this is a principle that basically the better something gets, the more it gets used, essentially, or the more we do of that thing. So mileage in cars. So cars have got more efficient, they can drive further on the tank of fuel that you fill them up with. Does that mean that we drive the car less? No, it just means that we now do longer distances. So you go back to like the 70s and the 80s, a road trip would only be from A to B. Now it's probably from A to Z. You can just travel further distances. And because those cars are more fuel efficient, people just drive more. So with AI tools, I think we're going to see a very similar sort of thing where people are, just because they can do it, they can do more of it, or sorry, just because it's more efficient doesn't mean they're going to do less of it. They're going to probably end up doing more of it and enjoy doing it more as well. Like there's no fear that you're going to break down or your car is going to run out of fuel halfway. Same with an AI tool. It's you get great music suggestions, you get more great music suggestions, you just listen more and more and more. So I think we're not going to necessarily see AI replacing things, it's just going to encourage us to utilize them more.
Yeah, it's a very good point. As we see like microchip and microprocessor technologies improve over time, our
Mm,
phones and laptops keep getting more powerful. They don't remain the same, right? The
yeah.
storage, the memory, um, keeping the MacBook Air aside, that thing still I think has 8 gigs of memory. But overall, you see that improvement kind of, and I think yeah, that is a very good point about AI.
Mm,
In fact, just thinking about how AI would help kind of commoditize intelligence, I've been quite excited about humanoid robotics, and just how I guess robot labor, if you want to call it that, would be at some point quite commoditized and
mm,
efficient, and the sort of changes that could bring to the economy. I mean, I can't even imagine it. I'm sure there's minds sort of greater than mine that are kind of debating this and thinking about it. But
yeah.
as someone who was in the robotic space some years back,
Hmm.
there's a little bit of FOMO going on with me because just seeing like everything happening with like Mercedes kind of getting into an agreement with, I think it's Aptronic they're called. They've got the
Okay.
Apollo robot. BMW is going to be trying Figure robots. OpenAI partnering with Figure, where they've
Hmm.
got like this multimodal LLM that's kind of what the robot's using to interact, but also decide what to do next. So I
Yeah.
feel like it's a very exciting space, and
Mm,
also not to mention Tesla bot, and
yes.
is everywhere, right? I even saw, I don't know if you saw MKVHD's April Fool, 1st of April video he did, which
Oh,
was
I've missed it. I need to catch up on it. Tell me about
oh,
it.
he's basically just walking around and he's sort of doing this kind of tour of a studio, and you see this like I think it's a Tesla bot kind of walk by,
Wait,
and
I
he's trying
think
to
I have
hide
seen
it.
this. Yep.
Yeah,
And
and
it
they
kind of
open
like
that
appears in
room.
the background just quickly. He closes the door and he's like, no, 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 no.
And you see all these robots that are like helping the production and like they're holding the camera and everything. But I think that is the future. So, to me, it's very exciting. But I don't know if you have any thoughts on this.
Well, you know what? Like, so often, a conversation that we had months back where you kind of explained to me that robotics is all around us and the washing machine isn't what I would have considered a robot, but essentially is. It's a task based machine. Honestly, I use this all the time. I tell everyone else like it's my piece of knowledge and I'm the expert. So thank you for that one. But I guess those robots we're very comfortable with. They serve one purpose, and we don't feel like our washing machine is ever going to replace us in a meaningful way. Apart from if you really love doing the washing and maybe you've lost that opportunity because you've now got a new washing machine. Probably not something that people get too cut up on. But I guess with robotics and especially humanoid robotics, it's how closely are they going to be able to replicate the tasks that we enjoy doing? And is that something that we would even program them for? I guess I'm thinking a robot taking away all of our chores, all of our hard labor, that feels like a good thing. But what are we replacing that time with? And how are we financially making sure that we can afford the things around us if we're not doing that labor? So, what is the replacement? Are we looking at more technical jobs? Are we looking at more creative jobs? Are we looking at kind of a global welfare system? What kind of replaces our need to do hard labor, I suppose?
Yeah, and it's an interesting point because there's almost like two facets to that. There's like the economics around it, and what does that mean? How do you make your money? How do you earn money
Hmm.
if you don't have a job to do because it's all being automated? Which
Yeah.
could be true for a lot of jobs, right? But there's also the other aspect, which is like, well, what do you do with your time? And I think just because there's a sort of a robot or a machine or an appliance in the case of washing machine, that's doing the task, it doesn't stop you from doing it. And I think an example of this that I've seen used in the past is things like you've got cars that move very fast, but that doesn't stop someone from running a marathon. So
This is a
it's
very
not
good point.
like, yeah, and that is not my original one. So I think I have heard it a couple of times. First time I think it was actually Elon Musk mentioning it, but I'm sure
Okay.
this point existed, this argument existed from before then. But I think it's almost like, I guess, to me, what the future holds is the fact that you won't be doing things out of things, it won't be necessary for you to do something.
Mm,
So it would be more of your choice. Like, do you want to do this? Do you enjoy doing it?
yeah.
Same with music creation. You might have AI tools that can write and create music.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of artists, if you were to talk to them, they're probably not creating music for any one purpose other than the fact that they just enjoy playing
Yeah.
and creating music. And if someone listens to it, that's great. But to be honest, I think probably most artists no one's ever heard because
Yeah.
they just play in their living room or bedroom, and
Mm.
that's where it starts and ends. So yeah, I'm kind of excited about this future, and I think
Yeah.
humanoid robots, I feel like, would be a big step towards a future where you do have more choice in terms of what you want to do. And
Definitely.
I'm very eager to kind of see how this plays out. But obviously, we have to be very careful as well. Yeah.
I think one of the big differentiators is going to be that craftsmanship. And right now, you can mass produce a knife super easily, or you can spend hundreds of pounds on a customized, high quality Japanese produced knife. And really, the difference between those pieces may be small. And unless you're a professional, you may not even notice the difference in that knife. But there's something about a high quality knife being part of a high quality professional process, part of a labor of love cooking that makes maybe the food taste better. And maybe that's just something that is really all in your head. It's not something that's necessarily that you couldn't tell the difference in a blind taste test. But knowing that kind of maybe the theatrics of seeing that tapanaki like chef cooking and slicing up the fish and then actually tasting that, knowing that the whole process has been quality crafted. I think there's just something to that. It's a lot about experience. Literally, one of the things I say all the time is things tend to taste better if they look better. So it's all about that kind of presentation, that labor of love. Like you can get poached egg and avocado for breakfast in pretty much any restaurant, but the real differentiator for me, obviously the ingredients and the quality, but it really does come down to the presentation. If something looks great, often I feel it tastes better than if it's just kind of slapped on a plate and with no love and no attention.
Yeah, that's such a good point because I think, yeah, if you apply that here, maybe with AI music generation tools becoming the mainstream and AI
Mm,
songs becoming mainstream, human art would have demand an even higher value. Like seeing someone actually play instruments and perform live might be something that's more rare, but
yeah,
also has a lot more value attached to it. So I think that's an excellent point for us to stop here. It's been great talking, and I can just go on forever. But let me save some stuff. We'll catch up again very soon. I hope, Daryl.
absolutely. It's been great catching up, always full of insight, and I look forward to our next catch up.